short article like last time, and then we can talk about this and apply what we learned today, okay? And hopefully you can remember these things as well. The two theories in strategy for the past 50 years that are the twin pillars of strategy, as I mentioned, let me just reiterate. One is called the IO theory. It stands for Industrial Organization Theory. And this is where Michael Porter's 5 forces is a part of. And so basically what these guys, the 3 assumptions of the IO school, or Michael Porter's 5 forces is this. These are just the 3 assumptions. The first assumption is this. What we want to explain in strategy is performance. That's the dependent variable. That's the happy face. That's what we want to know. Sustainable competitive advantage is a word that we use, but it's the same thing. We want more profits. But the IO theory assumption is this. In explaining this profit, the first assumption is this. It is the external environment that determines a firm's profits. That's the first assumption. So among a lot of these factors, the external environment is the most important in determining a firm's performance. That's why we're looking at the external environment. The general environment, industry environment, and competitive environment. These are the 3 external environments, as we mentioned last time. That's why we do that analysis. Why? Because that determines your performance. If you do an industry, Michael Porter's 5 forces of the airline industry, it will tell you that the industry is really bad. And that's why the performance of firms in the airline industry is not that good. And that determines their performance. Now, the second assumption of the IO school, or Michael Porter's 5 forces, is this. Resources among firms are mobile. So I'm Samsung, LG has something I want, then I can get it anytime. Just pay a little more money and I can get it. That's why it's the external environment that is really important. That's the assumption of the IO school. So the first one is it's the external environment that is really important, and firms, resources, are mobile across firms. And then the third assumption of the IO school is that all firms are basically similar. Samsung and GE or Apple, you think they're different? They're not that different. A little bit different history, a little bit different CEOs, but they're all basically similar resources. That's why it's the external environment that's really important in determining firm performance. These are the 3 assumptions of the IO school. Now, after Michael Porter, huge contribution to strategy in the 1970s and 80s, came up with this theory, another school started to counterattack. And this school is called the resource-based view theory school. And what they're saying, these are the 3 assumptions of the school. They're saying it's not the external environment that is most important in determining firm performance. It's the internal environment that is most important. That's their main assumption. Why? Because the 2 additional assumptions of the RBV school is this. The resources of firms are totally different. So Samsung and Apple, they're totally different. They have different histories, different founders, different countries, different. And so it is the differences among firms that determine their profits. And then the third assumption of the resource-based view is this, guys. Not only are Samsung and Apple different, if Samsung has something that Apple wants, Apple cannot get it that easily. They're going to have to pay a huge price to get the thing that they want from Samsung. Resources are not mobile across firms that easily. That's the 3 main assumptions of these schools. So when you think about these assumptions, it makes sense where they're coming from. The IO school says it's the external environment, stupid, that determines firm performance. And the resource-based view says it's the external environment that determines firm performance. And the reason, again, is that resources in the IO school are all same. Here, firms' resources are different. And then here, the resources of firms are mobile across firms. If Harvard has something that Yonsei University wants, we can get it very easily. Not that big a deal. Just pay a little money, we can get it. That's what they said. That's why it's the external environment. Resource-based view says, Harvard has something Yonsei wants, we can't get it that easily. Or we can get it, but we're going to have to pay a huge price to get that thing. And that's not going to be good for Yonsei. So those are the 3 assumptions. IO theory is about market power. Resource-based view is about exploiting differences. So this is their main focus. in the Michael Porter's 5 forces, how you make money is through market power, okay? By warding off the threat of new entrants, by making suppliers power nil, buyer power nil, substitutes, trying to kill substitutes, those kind of things. Resource-based view is about exploiting differences, not market power, but exploiting differences. Differentiation is the word that you want to use, okay? Now here is this, in strategy, for the word profit, we use the word rent. And this is not a big deal, but it's just something to know. Because a long time ago, economists, when they talked about profit, they used the word rent. So rent is not the money you get because you lease a building. Rent here is profit. That's the same thing. That's what we use, the word rent. But here in IO, that's what we're trying to explain. The rents of firms, profits of firms. But because IO's assumptions and it's about market power, this rent, the rent that you earn from Michael Porter's 5 forces money, the profits that firm earns, it's called monopoly rent. Because it's based on monopoly market power. So that's the word they use. When Samsung makes a lot of money, they use the word monopoly rent for Samsung. But then the resource-based view scholars, this is Gary Hamel and then others that I will introduce today. But these people, when they talk about the profits of firms, it's the same profit, guys, for you and me, but they use a different word. Here, they use the word Ricardian rents. Ricardian rents. So up on top is monopoly rent, and at the bottom here is Ricardian rents. Why Ricardian rents? Who is Ricardo? Economist. Good. Still alive? No. Dead economist? Yeah. What is he famous for? He is famous for comparative advantage. So Adam Smith talked about absolute advantage, and then David Ricardo, the British economist in the 18th century, he came up with the concept of comparative advantage. Exploiting the differences among countries, and so the resource-based view people really like David Ricardo's work because he talks about differences of countries. That's where your power comes from, not from monopoly power, but from exploiting differences. And so they take his name, Ricardian rents. So it's the same money. So Samsung makes this much profit every year, operating revenues, but the IO people, when they look at that revenue, they say this is monopoly rents. And resource-based people, they look at the same thing and they say it's Ricardian rents because their philosophy is totally different. They look at the same phenomena, but they explain it differently in that IO people and Michael Porter say Samsung's profits comes from the external environment. Samsung is positioned in a great environment. They're always good at that. They always think about the next industry, that's growth industry, and they're a first mover in that industry, for example. But then the resource-based people say, Samsung makes this money, not because of the external environment, but because of their internal environment. The many resources that Samsung has built, the different resources, different than Apple, that allows them this power and profits. So I mean, I'm sure everybody here, the conclusion, as we mentioned, is it's both are important. When you look at Samsung's profits, both coincide. So partly it's from the external environment that Samsung is in, and partly it's because of Samsung's great resource that they have. So both are very important. That's why we do an external and internal analysis. But because these two camps are so divided, their philosophy is very difficult to merge together, as we talked about earlier. So if we talk about competitive advantage, this is what we want to explain. This is profits. This is a good thing. It comes from two things. One is capability. This is the resource-based view. So you need to come up with unique capabilities. And then this is Michael Porter's 5 forces. You need to find a good industry, an attractive industry, and position yourself in that industry. That's the two viewpoints. And these are the two main, so in a nutshell, strategy 50 years ago was born. Why were we born? We were trying to explain why firms are doing, making a lot of money or not. Why are they successful or not? That's the dependent variable. It's very important. Are you going to be successful in your careers or not? It's the same thing. But then the two main villains that we were able to find up to this 50 years is these two. One is the external environment and one is the internal environment. Now, there are many more explanations of this besides these two. And I'm going to go into more specifics of other things we were able to find, in the past 30, 40 years. More cooler stuff, I guess, if you want. Well, you'll make the decision. But right now, this is the basics. In the past 50 years, these are the two main explanations, or two main culprits, two main villains of a firm's competitive advantage or profits: external environment and internal environment. So today, in the front part of this lecture, I will talk about this internal environment a little bit and introduce to you the main tools that we use to do an internal analysis, trying to find the resources that we have that are unique. Okay. Now, to introduce the resource-based view or the internal analysis, this is a very important framework for you to know. It's called the RPV framework. Okay, this is R stands for resources, P processes, V values. This is really important. With this one slide, I can explain so much of firm phenomena, why firms are successful or not, and so on and so forth. You're going to see this many times throughout the semester as we talk about other things. So just I'll introduce it in this class, but just because you listen to this today, don't forget it. Keep on remembering it because it's really important. The R stands for resources. The definition of a resource is this. An example of resources are these. I mean, I'm sure you guys know. Yonsei University has thousands of resources. Samsung has thousands of resources. So does Apple, and etc. P stands for processes. Processes definition is that, and examples are like. Processes are different from resources. What is a process? This is a process. Samsung takes the resource that they have and they mix it up together and they come up with something. It can be a capability if you want to use that word. That's a process. And so Yonsei University has hundreds of processes, right? The organizations that you work for or still work for has many processes, I'm sure. But this is the main difference. The process, you all have processes and you all have resources. But the resources that you have are relatively flexible. But the processes that you have are not flexible. This is such a big difference. That explains so much. For example, let's say our company decides to go into, we found an attractive industry, we did micro-course, 5-course analysis, and man, that's the next industry, we need to get in there, okay? And so one of the reasons why a business succeeds or not, which we'll introduce later on in the semester, but I'm sure everybody knows, is the managers, who we send to the new business is a big part of determining the success. And so let's say, Sana, really smart, really respected, we can send Sana to the new business. Why? Because resources are flexible. The processes are not flexible. Why are processes not flexible? This is why processes are not flexible. Processes are in place in an organization to do this. There's something that we do well. Well, this is what you do with the process. The thing that you do well, you use those processes to do that thing that you do well again and again, continuously, efficiently, consistently. That's what a process is there for you to do. But if you continuously change the process of your organization, it's really bad for you. With a little exaggeration, I would say, if an organization continuously changes the many processes that they have in the organization, they're going to die. Because processes are there to do something again and again, continuously, routinely, efficiently. But if you continuously change that, it's going to be really bad for your organization. That's the main difference. You know what the values are there? The V values is this. Everyone here as a manager in the future, your most important job or the most frequent job that you will do is you will make priority decisions. Everybody's the same, from the CEO to the new, new employee. So, for example, for Yonsei University, our most important market is the Chinese market, for example. For Yonsei University, the most important program is the GMP program. Every day, everyone here in the organization, they make priority decisions. But when you make these priority decisions, you make it not in a vacuum, but based on your experience, based on many meetings that you have together, based on brainstorming sessions, based on your education. And you have these decision criteria that you develop, and you use that to make priority decisions. And that's called values. This is called the RPV framework. And so this is the starting point of identifying and analyzing internal resources of the corporation. Resources, processes, and values. Resources are relatively flexible. The processes are not that flexible. But more difficult to be flexible for change is the values. The executive values of an organization, it is tough to change. Try to change the values of Samsung Electronics executives, because they're going to say, Samsung, we need to make at least 30% margin on that product. That's their values. Samsung, we need to make cooler products. That's their values. Try to change them. It's going to be tough. And so this is the process this is the framework. Okay, so keep this in mind, and we'll refer to this many times as we talk about many things throughout the semester. Okay. Now, the main concept that we talk about in internal analysis is called core competencies. And I'm sure you've heard about this word a lot, but hopefully in this class today, I'm able to convey to you the main concept, or what this concept really means. Core competency in the past 50 years has been one of the biggest contributions that our field has given to managers. But the concept of core competency has been the most misunderstood concept of strategy concept. So let me convey to you what this is in our field, and hopefully you can use this as you do an internal analysis. When I ask you what your core competency is, people say, "Oh, core competency, something that we do well, our strength." That is not core competency. That is a very superficial definition of core competency. You can't think of it that way. A core competency is a little different in strategy. For something to be a core competency, it has to satisfy several conditions. This is the work of Gary Hamel. And so let me introduce you those three conditions. For something to be a core competency, Hamel and Krahalad, these are the three main characteristics for something to be a core competency. If it doesn't satisfy these conditions, then we don't say it's a core competency. It could be something that's really good, that you like, sure, but don't say it's a core competency. And these are the three conditions. So let me just briefly go over what they are. For something to be a core, so let me say, our school has thousands of resources, thousands of processes, many values. But all these things, let's say I want to see whether this microphone is our core competency. Let's just say. Then for this to be our core competency, it must satisfy three main conditions. The first condition it has to satisfy is called valuable. What does this mean? It means of the thousands of things that Yonsei University has at our disposal, this microphone has to contribute to Yonsei University's customer satisfaction or customer value creation. This microphone has to contribute to that way more than the other things that we have that contribute to customer value creation. So of all the things that creates customer value in our organization, if this is our core competency, this must have a tremendous influence, an overwhelming influence in increasing the customer value creation at Yonsei. If it doesn't, then this is not valuable, and this is not our core competency. That's the first condition. The second condition, there's more. The second condition is, if this is our microphone is our core competency, it has to help Yonsei University when we move into different products, when we move into different geographical regions, different countries. This microphone must help us as we diversify. If this microphone does not help us as we go into new markets and products, then this is not our core competence. And the final condition, according to Gary Hamel and Prahalad, for this to be a core competency, our competitors must find it very difficult to imitate this microphone. If this microphone is valuable and diversifiable, but our competitors can imitate this next week without any hassle, then this is not a core competency. And so these are the three conditions of a core competency. I'm sure you guys are very smart, so you understand all this, what this means. But let me just introduce to you a brief analogy that Gary Hamel and Prahalad uses, so to fortify your understanding of this, so you can remember this for a long time. These are the three conditions of a core competency, but Gary Hamel uses an analogy of a tree to talk about these concepts. So let me just very briefly, convey to you what he's saying. A tree consists of many elements, but the core competency of an organization is not the trunk or the branches of the tree. That is not a core competency. To use an analogy, the core competency of an organization is the root of the tree. That's how we sort of compare, okay? So why is the root of the tree? Well, this is the reason why. Of all the things that a tree has, the root has the biggest contribution for a tree's growth. So in this case, for organizations, customer value creation. The second thing is this, diversifiable. When a tree has new branches, it doesn't come from existing branches. You see, a new branch doesn't come from an existing branch. A new branch comes from the root of the tree, because the root of the tree provides nourishment and nutrition to the growth of the tree. And so when an organization is going into new markets, new products, new countries, it provides the energy and nutrition like the root of the tree. And then the third reason why we compare it to a tree is difficult to imitate condition. You see, these branches, you can see them. So you can imitate them to some degree. But the root of the tree is inside. So competitors can't really see it. So it's much more difficult to imitate the root of the tree. And again, this is Hamel's argument. He wrote a book in 1993 called Competing for the Future. Again, this is a second Bible for strategy. The first one, Michael Porter's Competitive Strategy in 1980. In 1993, Hamel and Prahalad's Competing for the Future, which talks about the internal environment. These are the two Bibles of our profession so far, the twin pillars of strategy. I mean, Gary likes to use these examples. They talk about 3M and Honda, and you can use this for your organization. We can use this for Yonsei University, whatever. But just one example, the example that they use is Honda. Chunwon, do you know Honda?
Yes, I am aware of the company.
Okay, great. What do you think is their core competency? It's okay. You don't have to strain your brain too much. Sunyang. Okay, Sunyang. Do you know Honda? Okay. No, I just wanted to know if you knew it or not. What do you think? Give customers economic value? Good quality. Okay. Sure. They're very renowned for good quality. Well, anybody, if I were to ask you what is Honda's core competency, what would you say? Yes, Andy.
Lean production management.
Oh, lean production? Okay. Well, I mean, lean production, then we've got all Japanese.
Yeah,
all Japanese, same.
But they're cheaper than Toyota, but they provide similar quality and slightly lower prices.
Oh, is it? Okay. So, I mean, these are the conditions we have to think about as we talk about Honda's core competency. Yes?
Like reputation?
Honda? It can be reputation. Honda has a good reputation.
I think they're generally known for being efficient and safe.
Sure. Which are very important, Yeah. What?
It's the engine.
Engine. It is. I mean, when you go into a company, there are many core competencies. A company can have many core competencies, not just one. But the core competency a lot of people talk about traditionally for Honda is their engine technology. And more so, it's their culture of really, really rewarding engineers, a culture that really, really takes pride in engineering and those kinds of stuff. That is one of Honda's core competencies. Why? Well, because of these three conditions. The first one is called valuable. Of all the things that Honda has, of all the resource and process and these things that they have, their engine technology since 1953 and their culture of really putting number one in terms of engineers, it creates so much customer value compared to the other things that they have. That's the first condition. The second condition is diversifiable. You see, Honda, when people ask, what is their core competency, again, my wife, before this lecture, to practice my lecture, the only person I can experiment is my wife. And my wife, having been an arts major, I told her she hates strategy. And I say, honey, can I ask you one question? She said, yeah. What's Honda's core competency? And this is what she said, honest to God. I asked her, what is Honda's core competency yesterday? And this is what she did. She took me by the ear and said, come here. What? Hey, look outside, there's the Honda dealer. we live in Yongsan, Hangang-mo, and right in front of our apartment there's a Honda automobile dealer. And my wife says, that's Honda's core competency. When we were living in the States for 15 years, she told me, Honda, Accord, number one for about 3 years in a row. That's what she says. And then I ask people, person on the street, what is Honda's core competency? And then before they call the cops, they say, it's motorcycles, stupid. Honda has devoured, the Japanese have killed every motorcycle company in the world, starting with British Motor in 1950. Everyone, except for one, the Harley. They cannot kill Harley. But they've killed everyone. And Honda is at the forefront of motorcycles. Did you know that Honda is the top 3 maker in the world in terms of lawnmowers? Did you know that? Not lawnmowers in some of your small, teeny-weeny lawns at your home, but lawns in terms of parks. They have to cut the grass. Honda is the top 3 maker. Did you know that Honda is one of the best makers in the world in terms of snow blowers? In the year 2018, where is the Winter Olympics held? Korea! I did! Those of you Olympic ignorant people. Wow. 2020 Summer Olympics is in Japan. 2 years before 2018, it's in Korea, Pyeongchang. And when there is a lot of snow, and I pray for a lot of snow, but if there's too much snow, they have to take away the snow. And the machine that takes away the snow is called snow blowers. And Honda is one of the best makers in the world in terms of snow. But did you know, recently, businesses that Honda's entered, they're making jet engines. They're into robotics. But guys, Honda's automobiles, Honda's motorcycles, these are not their core competency. It's their branches. The root of the tree that provides nourishment is Honda's engine technology. So when Honda wants to go into motorcycles, automobiles, jet engines, snow blowers, lawn mowers, robotics, this engine technology, their powertrains and engines, it is the root of their tree. It provides energy and nourishment for them to spread into many more. And the third condition is it must be very difficult to imitate. Please do not get me wrong. Please do not misunderstand Gary Hamel's theory. The third condition is not impossible to imitate. There is nothing in this world that is impossible to imitate. If you give me enough good people, time, and money, we will imitate. The condition here is it's very difficult to imitate. What does that mean, difficult to imitate? It means this. If you want to imitate our core competency, you better pay a huge price. That's what it means. So what is paying a price? It's paying a price. You wanna imitate Honda's engine technology? Well, if you want to get into this business, you better send all your top, brightest people to that engine business. That's paying the price. You know what the ultimate price is? This is the ultimate price, though. This is what Honda would say. You want to imitate Honda's engine technology? Okay. Then acquire us. and go into debt and go bankrupt. That is the ultimate price that firms pay. That's what we're talking. And so this is the concept of core competence in an organization. Why are we so focused on this concept of core competency? Why? So what? Why do we want to know core competency? Anybody? This is the, yes, Levon?
We know in what we want to invest in the future.
Invest in the future? Sure. We need to know what to invest in.
To get a competitive advantage.
To get a competitive. That's why. You see, that's our dependent variable. Success, money, profits, sustained competitive advantage, all the same thing. And what this theory is, Michael Porter is saying, if you analyze the external environment, well, it will lead to profits. But what Gary Hamel is saying, if you find your core competencies, this will lead to better performance and profits. That's what we're saying. That's our holy grail that we're trying to find in our potential. So please keep this concept in mind. Okay. Now, as we talk about the concept of core competency, I want to introduce to you three concepts that are related to this core competency. These are concepts that we have come up with, created in strategy, and very important. So these three, please keep in mind as you think about the concept of core competency. The first one is called appropriability. The second one is called time compression diseconomies. And the third one is called Icarus paradox. And I'm sure you'll get it very quick. I'll just be very brief, okay? The first one, in terms of appropriability, very related to core competency, is this. This is the core competency, you guys. You need to find the valuable resource and process that you have. You need to find, the diversifiable resource and process that you have. You need to find something that is very difficult to imitate because this is going to lead to better profits. That's what it's saying. But then, even if you find all of these conditions for core competency, the final question is this. So because of these core competency, as Chu-Won said, you're going to have competitive advantage. You're going to make money, create value. But appropriability is this question. In the end, all the money that you earn, that you make, based on your core competency, it has to come to you. If that money does not come to you, and it goes to somebody else, then all of this is for nothing. So the final question is the question of appropriability. The money that you make based on your core competency must come to your company, not somebody else. But you know what? In many cases, it goes to somebody else. And this is the question of appropriability. Have you ever had group meetings where all night long you have to do a project, for finance class or whatever, and calculate NPV and all that, all that crap and all that, sorry. But then you do all the analysis. I lived appropriability when I was in the MBA, One of our group members, all he does is provide the apartment and some pizza. And what he does is, he eats the pizza, he's watching football. Hey, Hope, is it done yet? And all night long, we're going over these numbers, it doesn't make sense, all this crap and everything. And eating pizza, watching football. And this is the question of appropriability. You do all the work, and then you get like 5% of the value. And this happens a lot, guys. It especially happens in strategic alliances, when you don't have much power in a strategic alliance, when you don't have the patent. You work all night long, all weekend long, never see your children. And you create 99% of the wealth. But you only get 10% of the wealth. For a variety of reasons. And this is called appropriability. And if this happens, this is the worst thing that can happen. Because you work so hard, but in the end you don't get anything. So you've got to always make sure the money that you earn from your core competency must come to you. Okay? That's the question of appropriability. The second one is called time compression diseconomies. Time compression diseconomies is this. For you to do something in life, in organizations, it takes time. Not everything, but a lot of things. It's like Malcolm Gladwell says, you need to put in, at least 20,000 hours or whatever to do something well. It takes time. But time compression diseconomy, this is what it's saying. You need that time to do something, but you don't have the time. So what you have a tendency to do is you compress that time, and you do that thing for a very short time period, then you will not be able to do this well. Not only will you not be able to do this well, but there will be a lot of side effects. This is called time compression diseconomy. When you engage in R&D, guys, R&D takes time to do it right. But I don't have the time, man. So you compress the time and you do R&D for 1 week, you will not get that effect. Advertising is the same thing. To imprint something in the minds of consumers, it takes time. We don't have the time. So we compress that time and we advertise for 2 weeks. Time compression diseconomies is this, guys. I don't know if this is a good example. But hopefully you'll remember this for a long time. It's a really important concept. When I was in elementary school, my mom had me play the piano. I still remember, it's a long time ago, but my mom, every Sunday, the piano teacher would come and we would play for 2 hours, And then after, my teacher would say, "Oh, good job, okay, I'll see you next Sunday. But before I see you next Sunday, I want you to practice 8 hours." And I said, "Sure, thank you." And so on Monday, before Sunday, I would practice 8 hours. So on Monday, I was in front of the piano trying to, play a little, and then my friend calls, wants to see a movie. All right. And so we go see a movie, and I wasn't able to practice on Monday. Okay. On Tuesday, I was about in front of the piano, I'm about to play, and then my girlfriend calls. Oh, just by the way, I was in my prime in elementary school. Girlfriends everywhere. From then on, everything's downhill. Everything's downhill. But I was in my prime in elementary school. So I had a good time with my girlfriend, So I wasn't able to obviously play the piano on Tuesday. Wednesday comes along, I want to play some piano, but something else happens. Busy life, Hogan is prime in elementary school. And so it's Sunday night. Tomorrow my teacher's coming. I haven't been able to practice. But then I look at my watch. There is still time. And so Sunday night, I practice all night long. No sleep, no eat. And I practice all night Saturday night. And the next morning my teacher comes. "Oh, did you practice?" "Yeah." "All right, play." "Okay." And I start playing, and after a few seconds, my teacher starts going like this. I wanted to cover my ear too, but I can't because I'm playing the piano. This is called time compression diseconomy. When my teacher said to play 8 hours by next Sunday, this is what she meant. On Monday, I need to practice 20 minutes, and then stop. And then think, what did I do well? What do I need to improve? And then digest this, and then on Tuesday, practice 30 more minutes, and then stop and think. But it's Saturday night. I don't have time, And so I compress this, and I practice for 8 hours straight. It will not get that effect. And a lot of side effects. This is the same thing for acquisitions, guys. What do people do when you start working? This is what they're going to do. When Andy starts working, the executive, every morning he's going to get out the whip and go, "Andy, shh, 20% grow, 20% grow." But you know what? For an organization like Samsung, which Andy's going to work for, it's impossible to have 20% growth next year. For Yonsei University next year, it's impossible to get 20% growth. But this is what executives, this is what happens. When you get a job after your GMBA, executives, they have a whip out every morning, and 20% growth, 20% growth. It's like stretch goals, stretch goals. Oh, hey, what is it called? Every morning you come to work, and the executives, they have this whip out, stretch goal, and they have you try to obtain a goal, 20% growth, for example. Every day in the morning, they get the whip out, and they ask you, they force you to achieve a goal that is impossible to achieve. What is that called in one word?
Stress.
It's called hell. That's my definition of hell. there is a way to achieve 20% growth next year. You know how? Acquisition! If you acquire firms, you could achieve 20% growth. That's why they acquire so many. But acquisitions is time compression diseconomies. After you acquire a company, you have to stop and you have to think. What's good about this acquisition? What is bad? And communicate with your managers and think about it and digest it. We don't have time. 20% growth. And so you keep on acquiring these firms, and it's called time compression diseconomies. You will not get this effect, and there's going to be a lot of silence. This is something that I found that I think is really helpful for time compression diseconomy. Give you a lot of examples. I'm sure everybody knows now what it is, but for example, for you to not forget this for a long time, this is, in a sense, time compression diseconomy. This is the dialogue between a British lord and the American visitor, which the British lord has a beautiful lawn in Britain, and the American visitors there are having this dialogue with the lord. And the American visitor says, "How come you have such a gorgeous lawn, your lordship?" And the British lord says, "Well, the quality of the soil is of the utmost importance in having this beautiful lawn." And the American says, "Well, really? No problem. I can do that." And the lord says, "Well, there's more. To have this beautiful lawn, you need the finest quality seeds and you need fertilizer. That's very important." And the American visitor says, "Big deal. I can do that." And the British lord says, "Well, there's a few more things. To have this beautiful lawn, you have to water it every day, and every week you have to move it, the lawn. That's jolly important." And the American visitor says, "No sweat. Just leave it to me. That's it? No kidding? I can do that. That's all you have to do to get this beautiful lawn?" And the British lord says to the American visitor, "Yeah, no kidding. That's all you have to do. Oh, I forgot. To have this beautiful lawn, all the things I just mentioned, just do it for 500 years. Okay, based on the response, I'm not going to use this next time. better respond. It's good. Thank you. This is an example of time. See, to have this beautiful lawn, what you have to do is you have to start with the finest quality seeds. You have to use fertilizer. You have to water it every day, and you have to move it every week. These are all important, having this gorgeous lawn. But you have to do all these things for 500 years. But the American visitor doesn't have 500 years. Time compression diseconomies. So he compresses the time and he waters it for 1 week, uses good quality soil for 2 weeks. He will not get this grass. A lot of weeds will come. This is called time compression diseconomies. So please remember this. The final concept that I want to introduce to you today is called Icarus paradox. Again, I'm sure many of you know this. If you don't, please remember it. This is very related to core competencies as well. What this means, who is Icarus, by the way? I'm sure everybody knows, but somebody give me. Thank you. It's a very sad story, by the way. Icarus, in Greek mythology, just reiterate a little bit. His father was a king, and Icarus, in Greek mythology, was trapped in an island, in a prison, in a maze. And his father wanted to, escape from this maze. And he was thinking of how he's very smart because he's a king. And he came up with wings. This is the story. And he went to his son, Icarus, and said, "Hey, son, these wings are really, really dangerous, but they're very helpful to escape. So what I want you to do is we're going to use these wings to escape, but then once we escape from this maze and this prison and island, stop using these wings because they're very relieving." And Icarus says, "Thank you, Father. I'll remember that." And so using wax, they both on their shoulders, they put their wings on their shoulders and they start flapping their wings. This is the Icarus story. And as they flap their wings, they go, they go up. Not up as in Iron Man. But they go up. And so they go up and fly, and so they escape the maze, they escape the prison, and they escape the island. But what did Icarus' father say? This is very dangerous. So stop using it once you escape. But Icarus forgets because it's so fun. He's so successful. And so he keeps on flapping his wings and he flies too high and gets near the sun, and the sun melts the wax on his shoulders and the wings fly off and he falls to the sea and Icarus dies. This is the Icarus story, which I'm sure everybody has heard in some form, some fashion. Well, in strategy, we came up with a concept called Icarus paradox. And what Icarus paradox is this? If I were to ask you, what is Icarus's core competency? Timo, what would you say? Icarus's core competency. Something that creates so much value for him, that helps him escape.
Being able to fly.
Being able to fly would be Icarus's core competency, one of them. But guys, think about it. You know Icarus' strength, core competency, his ability to fly, it helped him escape, it helped him succeed. But Icarus died because of his core competency. Not in spite of his core competency, he died because of his core competency. This is called the Icarus paradox. When organizations die, not in spite of having strengths, but because they die because of their very strength. This is a very scary phenomenon. And many organizations have been a victim of the Icarus paradox. They die they have these strengths, they die not in spite of having these strengths, but they die because of this very strength. And this is called the Icarus paradox. And so what I'm trying to say is, this concept of core competency is really important for you to nurture, because it will lead to competitive advantage. But if you're not careful, that's why you need to look at the external environment of Michael Porter, because suddenly something that was your core competency can become your core rigidity, like with Icarus paradox. The strength, your very core competency could be the seeds of your demise and death. That's the Icarus paradox. So you got to be very careful. You got to look out for the sun, because this will change. This is the external environment. So take a look at this guy. This is how we do. Let me show you this final few pictures. Okay. This 2x2 matrix. This is how we usually think about a core competency and core weaknesses. The concept of a core competency is Prahalad Hamel's core competence. These are the three conditions. So please keep this in mind as you try to find these in your organizations. Okay. These three concepts are very important and related to core competency and strategy. So keep these concepts. Again, these concepts will pop up again and again in cases and things that we discuss later on as we talk more about various other topics. Okay. And then sort of the final picture that I wanted to show you, the final few, is that you can use a 2x2 matrix. And so this x-axis is called strategic importance. So how important is this resource or process to do well in this industry? And so let's say this is 0 and this is 10. Least important, very strategic important. And then here, high and low would be relative strength. How relatively are we good at this or not? And then so this is for example something that we can take resources, and then R1 can be financial, and we can say financial resources in this industry strategically it's about a 6 in terms of importance out of 10. Our relative strength in terms of financial compared to other companies in this industry is about a 4. Technology is about 7 in terms of strategic importance in terms of this industry, and relative strength, our company in terms of technology is about a 5. And you can do this for all